month. One is because this is when it blooms.
Oh.
It starts blooming in the fall, right?
Oh.
And the other is because it's also good for colds and flus.
Oh.
So it drains and clears heat. And so this is a good, we call it Juhua, and that's on the back of your little card there, so you get to take it home with you. And it is just tiny bit cold. Well, there must, yeah, that'll be fine. We'll just, so it's a little bit cold. Now, things that are considered bitter are draining. So you know that the action of chrysanthemum is draining because it's bitter. So it is, and it also does what we call clears heat. So this is for our, what we classify as external invasions. This means colds and flus. It could be used at anything that has an early kind of feverish feeling. So yes, you could use it if you thought you were coming down with COVID. However, we have much stronger, our formulas that we actually use for that have Juhua in it. So it's kind of there. It also does this other thing we call calms the liver or smooths the liver. This, so the tea that you're drinking, the mint and chrysanthemum flower tea, actually helps to open a person up so they can take a deep breath and settle down the anger. This is, because today we're going to be talking about the psycho-emotional portions of care in the Chinese medicine. And one of the first ones is when you're highly upset and irritable and frustrated and you're not sure which way to turn, have a chrysanthemum and mint tea. You can get it in a tea bag. You don't have to go out to your garden and pick the flower, although it would help you a lot because you could go 1, 2, 3.
And that's what we did today.
Can you overdose on it?
On chrysanthemum? No, not really. You can, because the only thing that would happen is you get super mellow. And I think the world would appreciate that if you're trying to overdose on chrysanthemum, you know what I mean?
Super mellow.
Yeah.
All this helps with fighting a cold or flu.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
You know, when you put it into one of the formulas, even with just the mint, this is for colds and flus.
Excellent.
And so you would take it warm in that case as opposed to cold.
Okay.
Yeah. So, let's see, the yellow chrysanthemum is, so the flower itself comes in colors. We use the yellow and the white. And the little tiny chrysanthemums, not those great big things. The button chrysanthemum is the one that we use for medicine. And that one is used when there's a fever and headaches and a sore throat with chills. And then the white chrysanthemum is used when your eyes are involved. Like you get really weepy red eyes with whatever you've got going on. That's when you would use the white chrysanthemum. And if your sinuses are all plugged up and you're kind of having that dizziness, you know, when you're signing, you lay your head down and everything goes, and you go the other way,
Like the windshield wipers.
yeah, like windshield wipers. Exactly, like windshield wipers.
So I can just eat this then,
You
right?
can just eat that, yeah.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure.
yeah, we, even though it's medicinal, you can also use it as a food. And so that's what we're doing today. So the food that you're eating is actually the leaf as opposed to the flower. What you're drinking is the flower as opposed to the leaf. So there's, you know, the leaf is really falls into that deep green leafy vegetable area. So with the high vitamin B's and C's and, you know, fiber,
Okay,
these
very
kind
good.
of things. So, and you're welcome to use it out of your garden, provided you don't put pesticides or herbicides on it. You don't want to be eating that. We try to stay a little bit organic around here, right?
Now does, Cher, do you devise the recipes?
It's a mix. I often take things off of the internet or says, hey, try this one.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll take it and I'll adjust it slightly, so, you know, yes, and, you know.
So you found something on the internet for chrysanthemum?
Yeah.
Yeah, Anne found it, and she said, how about trying this? And I thought, are you kidding? I don't know about that. And then the chrysanthemum that I have that I've been growing for a few years, that I don't put any pesticides on it, was really small. And so we contacted Pauline, because she has quite a large bush chrysanthemum, and there's no pesticides or, you know, stuff
Oh,
like
wow.
that. So just pulled the leaves off, washed them good and pulled them off, and followed the recipe, pretty much strictly to the recipe.
Wow.
The one that you've got there. Yeah.
And you can always make adjustments for flavoring, especially like the chili. I mean, obviously you could make it hotter just by adjusting that recipe.
Yeah,
a little bit.
the one that was on the internet on that one, I think you were supposed to cook it, was it?
No, you can do either or. So it's a salad, but if you stick it in a pan and simmer it, it becomes the chili.
Yeah, well, they call it chili because it has chili in it, chili powder.
Yeah,
Um,
I like it this way.
Yeah.
yeah, but
Very
I thought it was a nice balance
But in
for
the
the
middle of the
richness.
winter, you might want it warmer.
Yeah, you could, absolutely.
Exactly.
And I added avocado, which was intended in the recipe, but it balanced out the colors, I thought, and also texture, so.
Right. So today, we are going to talk about how Chinese medicine addresses some of the mental health issues. And you'll probably find that Cher has a lot to put in from the Western side because she's an LMFT. And we have found, just her and I personally, that when we work on the same person from the two sides, that they tend to do really well. Or they can at least maybe let go of something that they're hanging on to so tight. Or a lot of people have pain involvement. Now, there's a chicken or an egg issue there, because if you have a lot of psycho-emotional, if you have a lot of emotional stuff going on, it can be painful. It can cause pain, all right? But pain itself can lead to anxiety and irritability and depression. Because in the Western world, we also know that, for instance, depression and pain are involved in the same chemical in the brain. And they both deplete that chemical. So if you're depleting the chemical through pain, then you end up in depression. If you're depleting that because of depression or because you just don't create it and therefore you are depressed, you also don't create it to counteract the hypersensitivity of the body. And so a lot of these things, when we talk about emotional care, you know, it doesn't really matter where it started. Did it start because your mother yelled at you when you were a little kid, or did it start because you got in a major car wreck and broke your neck? I mean, you know, it doesn't really matter where it starts. Remember in Chinese medicine too, that everything is circular in our medicine. In Western medicine, it's more linear, okay? It's like, we have X and therefore, and we treat this, but it doesn't go anywhere after this treatment. You know, if you have something else, we have to go on a different line. All right? But in Chinese medicine, it's like, if you have these 43 symptoms, they're likely connected in some way or another. And we can go all the way around the circle to find. And a lot of it, the first question I always ask is, you know, what's the thing that's bothering you the most? For instance, a person might come in and what they're complaining about is insomnia. But what they might be diagnosed with in the Western area is either depression or anxiety or something of that nature, okay?
Mental health is actually becoming a lot more circular in the way that they treat people too. They're more global.
Yeah.
And your perception of pain really has a lot to do with your mental state. People can tolerate a lot more pain when they aren't depressed and distressed
Right.
than they can when they are. If you are depressed, your sense or your personal perception of pain will be heightened.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
So it
one
feels
of the,
worse.
one of the best treatments for that, of course, is laughter, right?
Yes,
It's the best medicine.
Laughter is still the best medicine,
yes.
because it changes you chemically.
Mm.
So I've had a special request that we take a moment and do a little laughter therapy. Are you
Yes.
ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so set everything down because I don't want you spilling anything.
No, that would cause crying instead of laughing.
Or the rest of us would
Don't laugh over
Right.
spilled milk or tomatoes.
Right? Okay, now, it's gonna be, you can stand up or you can sit down, it's up to you how you wanna do this, all right? Because one of the things we wanna do is get the laughter out of our chest and into our bellies, right?
Right.
Okay? So we wanna do like Santa Claus does, right? He's got that bowl full of jelly and he gets laughs like he's got a bowl full of jelly, so let's get our jelly going.
Beautiful. That's good, that's good.
I can see some of you are at a distinct disadvantage because you didn't have your bowl full of jelly for us.
I don't have a lot of jelly. Some people are skin.
In Chinese, the monk with the stomach, he's laughing.
Laffy Buddha.
Right.
Yeah.
The Buddha, right? And of course,
Yeah.
he's got, his oxygen is in his lower cavity,
Right?
and that's what causes his stomach to go out. Right? You make that?
Do you know why he laughs? Do you know the true reason he laughs? So,
Because life is a beach.
yeah, and he's got a beach belly.
He's got the color right there.
Okay, yeah.
No, he actually laughs. It's kind of odd because he's enlightened and he knows that you know that possessions own you, and so you need to release that.
Mm-hmm.
He's extremely wealthy to start with, so he's got to get rid of all of his possessions. And what he does is he does it compassionately. He gives it to the poor people who don't have enough, and therefore this is a great gift. But he laughs every time he hands it over because he also just burdened them with it.
That's a good, very good point, yes.
So it's a twofer problem there, right? You know, but on the other hand, if you're not enlightened, you need to eat. And if you are enlightened, you still need to eat. Just probably not as much or as often. So we go around in this circle. You know, a lot of, if you lose your laughter, there's a problem, and it will go all the way around in the circle. And in Chinese medicine, as you can see here, if we do not, you know, we talk about the spirit of the individual, and I want to make sure that I qualify this because this is under Taoist teaching. And in the Taoist teaching, it's all about the here and now, and there is no happy ever after. If you aren't happy now, you got nothing. You got to bring it into the here and now. You got to be in this existence in the here and now. And it's all about the harmony of the here and now. So the spirit of the individual is what we can experience, what someone else experiences of you, your character, how it comes forth out of you. That is what we're talking about when we use the word shun or spirit. It's translated to spirit, but what else are you going to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know. So when we talk about, we must treat how you interface in this world. Otherwise, we haven't done anything for you. You could be as pain-free as ever. Your bowels can work really well. You can urinate all you want in a really nice, comfortable way. But if you won't get out of bed because you're so freaking depressed, it doesn't matter.
Right?
None of that matters if you're not able to engage in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how you engage in the world, of course, is individualized. I mean, how I engage with you is going to be different than how you might engage with somebody else, right? Some people are quieter, some people are louder, some people are more angry. Now that might be something we want to help them correct, but they have to want to correct it too, right? And occasionally angry people do want to correct that. Occasionally, not too often. We also, so these are the elements of Chinese medicine. They do not line up with the Greek elements. They're completely separate, okay? So, and each
When you
of
say Greek, you're referring then to Western?
Western,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
And, you know, they have the air, fire, earth, and water,
Yeah,
right? But we have 5 elements.
and the one that's different is,
Two.
what is different?
We have wind,
Yeah,
but they have air, right?
are those comparable to you?
No,
No,
they're not at all.
Okay.
That's the whole thing. So
okay,
we have, and we have metal,
yeah,
which is
And-
not earth, because we also have earth.
And wood.
So, yeah, well, wood and wind, the element is actually the wind element, but the substance is wood. But each of these elements are within everything, within us. And each of these pieces of us as a whole also have their own spirit that is projected outwards. If we are balanced in these spirits, then we have a balanced character. But if one of them is stronger than the other, or one has receded too far so that it's not bringing itself forward, then we're out of balance and something has to be changed. Okay? So this is what we are really talking about, because remember, this is how the rest of the world experiences you. If you are schizophrenic in this world, you're perfectly happy with yourself. It's the rest of us that are not happy with you, if you think about it, right? And you're attending to your world all that you need to. The problem is that you're not attending to the world that the rest of us are living in. And that may greatly interfere with the harmony of the moment, okay? This is true of delusional people. You know, their way of perceiving the world begins to interfere with the harmony of the community. If there was no community, who cares how you perceive the world? I mean, really, if you decide that red is black, it doesn't matter if you're not trying to communicate with someone else. But when you are, and you get this all out of balance, then there becomes a disharmony between everybody, right? And so we're going to be looking at that more. And then, of course, there's the heaven and earth portion of all this. Now, when they use the word heaven, they don't mean anything Christian here. They just mean that which is beyond earth. Whatever's outside of earth is heaven, okay? And then there's the earth. And so in between those two is man. And we have to be able to allow heaven to come down through us, circulate through the earth, and have the earth return to the heavens. So this is a circular flow. If we are not in harmony with that flow, then things begin to become an issue, right? Now, oh, it's gonna work today. Woo-hoo! I'm so excited. It's the little things in life that just make it great, right?
right?
So each of those 5 elements that we were just talking about have a corresponding organ within the trunk of our body. And that organ expresses itself out through the rest of the body through the system that you may have heard called meridians, where there's a flow out of the organ and a flow back, and then a flow around to the other ones. Each of those organs and elements are associated with a behavior or an emotion. And so you can see here the liver deals with those kind of jagged-edged type of emotions, the rage, the anger, even the little things like frustration or irritability. This really is the liver. And even in Western language, we sometimes say, oh, they're pretty livery, right? Meaning that they're always irritable, they're kind of snappy at people. Also, if the wind and wood are not supple and moving, you end up stuck in depression. You're just stuck. The fire element belongs to the heart, and the fire element and the heart are the emperor of your body. Everything will eventually affect the heart. And one of the things is that the heart should be where we express our joy, where we come out to the world and we have that laughter and that happiness. But you get it overdoing, you get the fire flaring too hot. You're gonna have somebody who's always, like a little mouse running around all the time, and you're not gonna be able to keep up with them. Or they can get overly excited like a 2-year-old who hasn't had their nap, and they're, in the midst of everything, and suddenly they just burst into this tantrum of tears because they've been overstimulated. And shock is a problem of the heart. Now this is where suddenly something hits you so hard that you come to a dead stop, right? I mean, literally, you could pass out or you could become immobilized because it's too big. It's shut the heart down and the emperor can't think anymore. And so PTSD can do this. There's the fight and flight we hear a lot about. You either fight with somebody to get safety or you run to get safety. So you're either the cougar or the deer, right? But there's also the third one of fright, and this is where literally you could pass out because it's too much for your brain to take in, and it just passes out. The earth, and now we call this the spleen, and for those of you that are new, that's got nothing to do with the spleen. We call it that. It's a translation problem. It probably has more to do with the pancreas. It has everything to do with the assimilation of food, not the digestion of food that's in the stomach, but the assimilation of that food into us, into our body, into our being. And if we're worried all the time, we are not, we're either using up food and we can't eat, or we're over worrying and we're eating at that. A lot of people do this kind of anxious eating type of thing. It also comes up with being suspicious of others for any reason, or obsessive. The obsession over things can be really disharmonic. Metal goes with the lungs. This is the capacity to be able to bring in the energy of the world through a breath. If you look at grief or sorrow, the person is never sitting like this going, oh, I feel terrible, right? They're sitting like this, and they're collapsing the lungs so they can't take that deep breath. This also happens a lot in depression. And people will sit funny in this forward area. And a lot of times if sometimes we're tired and we feel like, oh God, I just can't do it anymore. Literally, if you just simply sit up and open the lung, it's amazing what you can do, right? Just take that deep breath and rearrange your body. Anxiety and despair are really up there with the grief issues. Now, all of these are normal, natural types of emotions that we have throughout our life. It's not that you don't want to have them, it's that you want to have them in balance, right? Because things happen and we find ourselves grieving it. Okay, so do that. It's a heck of a lot better than addressing it 20 years from now when it's become pathological. But there is pathological grief, and this is where we have great counselors in this world. So we can help the person open up and do some lung exercises, maybe through Qigong or something of that nature. But there's also what's going on in the brain that's deeper than that. Is there regret? Is there guilt? Is there, some sort of secret hoping that person would drop dead, and now they did. I actually had a person in my life who didn't get along very well with her mother, and her mother was literally leaning on the wall, and the daughter screamed at her, I just wish you would drop dead, and the mother did.
What?
Yeah, just literally, boom, dropped dead. Now she had a massive heart attack, but you can only imagine what that would feel like to you for the rest of your life, right?
Mhm.
So that could become quite pathological. And then what would happen every time somebody significant in your life died?
Mm,
You may actually begin to think you caused it,
yeah,
or
right.
something else pathological of that nature.
I find a lot of people who are in grief or should be experiencing grief have difficulty allowing themselves the intensity of the emotion. Either they're trying to avoid it so it won't be real, or they're again feeling shame or anxiety about what they did or didn't do, a lot of guilt. And so they don't want to face it, they don't want to cry, they don't want to cry as much as they need to.
Mm,
But the body needs to cry. The spirit knows better, but the physical body actually recognizes a separation from the other physical person. So then they don't allow their body the experience of just crying, keening, moaning, wailing, complaining of like, hey, where is it? You know, what happened to that? I mean, and animals do that. They grieve too. You can see them
yeah,
physically, and once they've done it, then they get on, you know. But humans, we have so many rules and regulations about the way we're supposed to function, and if we're not functioning in that fashion, then there's all these things. So we're never supposed to be unhappy. Especially in America, we're always supposed to be happy.
right?
If you actually feel sadness, then there's something wrong with you, and maybe
Right.
you're depressed and you need medication. But for the most part, people really need to just cry and let that be. You're probably not going to die from crying.
I just want to comment on that. What I find very interesting in the lexicon of American language that we speak. So if you think about it, when you either hear somebody talk about it or you read it in written language, generally speaking, when somebody is talking about a man,
Uh-huh.
they don't say he was feeling so much sorrow. They say he got emotional.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
got emotional,
Like
or
you
they'll
can't
say,
do that at all. It's not within your purview.
right, or they'll say he almost teared up,
Yeah.
you know, or he teared up, as if this very superficial description of male behavior is supposed to feel adequate for us, you know,
Right.
and it's such a clear division between the way we talk about men's emotions, quote unquote, which are really a lack of expression, and the way we talk about women's emotions. And I just really appreciate it when I see men who, like Cher is saying, men who need to be crying at that particular moment, and they allow themselves to cry. I am over the top with appreciation of this man allowing that to happen
Mhm.
and not being ashamed of it.
Mhm.
We're not supposed to let them see you sweat. Never let them see you sweat. I mean, there's advertising out there, and people will respond to that because they're saying, yeah, that's what we need to do. Do not allow anyone to notice that you are fearful or down or worried about anything. You always got to be strong. Don't cry. Buck up. Be a man. Don't cry.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of messages.
A lot of, inappropriate messages. And grief, mourning is a, it's like society expects it to stop at a moment. Okay, you've had your 3.5 minutes, now stop it, right? And, I had a client whose 6th child committed, or her 5th child committed suicide. It's the 5 times she's had her boys commit suicide. And her ex-husband committed suicide, though they were not married at the time that he committed it. And so she is just devastated that this one more child that she thought was going to make it didn't. He committed suicide. Well, 3 months later, now in my mind, she has to grieve the suicide of every one of these children, right?
And the ex-husband.
And the ex-husband, the father of these children, right? And she has to have the anger at each one of them for having committed suicide. Anyway, she's got a lot of connected emotions here, right? And at 3 months after this suicide, she came in, she says, my daughter thinks I'm depressed and I should be on medication. Now, unfortunately, her daughter was a mental health professional.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that's what, I was like, well, so we talked about it for a while, and I said, why don't we give it just a little more time, see what happens. Well, she's never gonna be without some grief for those children that she lost. But she's gonna get on with life, and she did. And when she got on with life and was able to live the life, then, you know, the mourning according to Western society is over. Now, if she was still doing this 6 years later, probably it would have really interfered. So, my father's last wife, when he died, was still mourning acutely 10 years later. And she had not progressed forward in her life. So I would have to say that was very pathological. And she ended up actually in a nursing home with dementia. And I believe it's because she stopped moving forward at the moment of his death.
And she may have already been in process,
Maybe.
and then it just expressed itself as this grief, this loss, that her physiology, again, it's that chicken or the egg, which one actually happened first? Was it the emotional distress and shock, or was it the physiology was breaking down and it expresses itself as grieving or as shock?
Now the kidneys are in charge of the fear or panic. This is when the water is rushing over the dam and drowning. So you feel that overwhelmedness. Or it can be the other way where everything is drying up and not flowing, where you have this feeling of loneliness, like nothing is happening. There's nothing going on in your life. So these are the ways that, those are just the broad categories. In Chinese medicine, we actually believe that most internal pathology is emotional. I mean, really, what is the cause of heart disease? We will look to the personality. Okay, sure, there's a genetic component. But when you say, my father had a heart attack at 62, and then you go and have a heart attack at 62, and your son has a heart attack at 62, it's likely more an expectation of how maybe that weakness of the gene is going to express itself. Now this is actually my family's history. My grandfather dropped dead at 62 of a heart attack. My mother spent the month before her 62nd birthday evolving a heart attack and was admitted to the ICU on her birthday. And my brother, 3 days after his 62nd birthday, had to go in and have his heart attack corrected.
This is behavioral, wouldn't you say? It's a kind of an imitative behavior.
Well, some of it because they were clogging up their arteries too. So there may have been a genetic component, but why at 62? I mean, why couldn't you do it at 60 or 63 or 85? Right?
It's like a bomb ticking.
It's
Okay.
like a bomb ticking, and now I'm
There's
62
no
and
number.
off it goes, right? Gotta detonate the bomb.
We don't know
because-
enough about it yet.
Yeah, but you see that a lot of this in Chinese medicine, we look to the interior. We look to the emotions and how that person is living within life. If they're in balance, you know, this is the person who just wakes up dead. You know, one day they just wake up dead and that's the end of it. And you hear this all the time. They'll say, well, he was so healthy.
Yeah.
Yay! Right? Yay! This is what we, you know, all of us want to just wake up dead one day. We don't want to suffer out our lives. And then our family will say something silly like, well, they didn't even say goodbye. Well, like they didn't know. They didn't know that tomorrow was the day they'd wake up dead. Right?
It's kind of a nice thing, yeah.
You know?
Live on.
I mean, I actually have a neighbor right now. She was just mad because one day her husband woke up dead. he had the gall and audacity to be laying there dead. And I said, well, geez, that's wonderful, that's how I wanna die. And she's like, what? I said, I wanna just wake up dead one day. I mean, I don't care if it takes
Walk
somebody
out.
7 days to come and find me, it's not gonna matter. I'm gonna be dead. That's what I want. I mean, I don't wanna have to go around to each one of you and go, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna be dead, tomorrow I'm gonna be dead.
I would like a warning actually, if you're gonna do that
Well,
If
unless
you
you're,
smell something odd, you'll know that I woke up dead, right?
well, unless you were planning your suicide, that's different.
Well, you could do that too, you know, putting yourself out on the ice like they used to do sometimes, you know.
now. Yeah,
But Grandma would
going
make that
into the
decision.
forest.
Yeah, okay. So, and regardless of which of these emotions we're talking about, ultimately because of that circle, it will affect the heart. It's going to affect the emperor somehow. Somehow the emperor is gonna have trouble in the kingdom. And so you can't say, oh, it's only my kidneys that I'm destroying. Or it's only my digestive system that I'm destroying. So you are still destroying your heart at some point. You are taking the emperor out of his role, his or her role. Okay? And this is how we look at psycho-emotional care. So we go back to what's going on this circle. Now ultimately I know that the shun, or the big shun, the emperor, is going to show changes. That might not be the root of it though. And what I want to know is, where is the root? This is one of the things that we look very carefully at. And yet, because it's a circle, there is no true root to anything, right? It could be, as Cher was saying, you know, that there's a familial issue going on. It could be a genetic issue. It could be the way that you're eating. You know, if you're always drinking alcohol to excess, even in Western medicine, you're destroying your liver. You will destroy your liver in Chinese medicine too. And guess what you get to be? You either get to be depressed or you get to be pissed off. It's one or the other. You don't get something in between, because you're destroying the organ that balances those two. So you're out of balance, right? Now, of course, the answer would be something like, well, stop drinking, right? And let's see if we can repair this organ so you can get better balance. But it takes a long time. When you look at people that are in recovery, it takes time to repair that organ. And for a while, they are not very stable. But what we do begin to see is that when this organ repairs, is we begin to see the bubbling up of where this originated. Why the choice to drown in alcohol? You know, and this might be all kinds of things. Maybe your mother was not too stable. Maybe, you know, you had a trauma where somebody close to you died and you can't deal with it. And we need to deal with it, right? And so a lot, you know, we can't always just say, well, it's because his father drank. It could be that. It could be that simple. But why was the father drinking? And now that we know in Western medicine the whole science of epigenetics, where there is a tagging of proteins on your DNA, helping to determine what is expressed and what is not expressed. You know, your father drinking may be that he handed you down the epigenetics that belongs to, say, the Jewish Holocaust. I mean, really, you know, you can look at a group of people whose ancestors survived in, you know, some camp, and you will see anxiety in the offspring that is being passed down through these epigenetics. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily get really simple, but it does. Sometimes I don't need to know. I just need to find the organ to start with and get going.
You also
You'll
taught
find it.
stress management, or how people respond to distress or challenges in the day. You know, my mom did it this way, my dad did it this way, and you may have a genetic propensity, but you will also do that because you think that's the way to handle it, that's the
Yeah.
story,
Behavioral mimicry,
that's your story.
and that's how we're taught.
That was what you were modeled. Mhm.
Good question, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess I did have a question. I have a great grandmother who's 103 years old.
Uh-huh.
Actually, now 100. Sorry, spit down the wrong pipe. She's 104 now,
Ooh.
born in 1917. And she should not be alive. She smoked for 50, 60 years. She drank, she's had lots of cancer episodes. And I'm just wondering if someone is really, really out of balance, can that have a pull on, when they die and when they don't?
Oh, absolutely. You know, for one thing, you could commit suicide if you're really out of balance, right?
Right.
But this is the whole idea behind the type A personality and the heart attack, right?
Right.
It's all, that's a personality or a characteristic of how you walk in this world.
Right.
And if you have a family history, this may make that personality worse, but you may be the only person in your family like that. And you dropped dead of a heart attack because for whatever reason, you are the only one like that. But they actually, when it comes to type A, we used to think this was the hard-driven, kind of obsessive type of personality. The A actually stands for anger, by the way. It's
Anger.
the angry personality.
Wow.
This irritable, frustrated anger because this person is unfulfilled. And so they seem to be striving all the time, right?
That's her. She's very irritable, very angry all the time. I mean, she has dementia now, but she's never been a very amiable person.
Maybe she was just too mad to die, you know?
I think that's it.
What is it, heaven doesn't want you and hell's afraid you'll take over?
Yeah.
I love that's a beautiful expression.
So emotional distress shows up in many different ways. You know, a lot of people tell me when they're really stressed out that they can't remember things,
Right.
you know, or they're sleeping poorly, or their weight, they gained 15 pounds when thus and such happened and they can't get rid of it. You know, they're holding on to the cushion, right? I mean, a lot of people that are, well, right now, most of us are shunning social activities. Most social activities have shunned us, right? But, it's, you might have a young person where the sex is just, when they should be in the heyday of their sexual prowess, and they can't, maybe because they were abused as a younger person. And so when they're approached, all of the walls go up. And, it's not a fun way to live life, I suppose. Erratic behavior. So, you have to come up with some style of coping.
Have you ever treated a person who literally, at best, can sleep 1 to 2 hours a night, and this is ongoing for months and months and months and months, and now sometimes sleeps 0 hours at night, and if is lucky, maybe catches 1 or 2 hours in the daytime? Have you ever heard of such a person?
Mhm. This happens all the time after our major traumas. So following the car fire, for instance, I had patients that this was the big problem. They couldn't sleep because when they tried to, the trauma would reignite the need to be awake and watching, right? Or we have people that are so, now there's a misconception. Now I worked in nursing homes for many years of my life, and there's a misconception that if somebody who is extremely elderly and they're laying quietly that they're asleep. They may not have the energy to move, and if they are that low in energy, they are also not asleep. They are awake because it takes energy to go to sleep. We were not as aware of that until we got the little portable EEGs, and we would hook it up to somebody's head when we were trying to give them heavy sedation, and we wanted to know when they reached that sedation so that we wouldn't have to give more. And what we began to find out is that people looked asleep and were not. And often they would say to us, the nurse, I didn't sleep a wink all night. And of course, we, the nurse, because we know everything, we're omnipotent, right? You know, we would say, well, every time I came in there, you were asleep. So their bodies are quiet. They may even have a snoring process going on and be quite awake underneath it all. And so I actually have a patient right now that has not slept for 2 weeks. And that's why she came to me.
It's incomprehensible to me. I mean, I don't even understand how somebody could still be alive if you have slept
Well, you,
1 to 2 hours a night for 4 to 6 months.
yeah, well, for a while, you're only gonna last so long, and then the body is going to collapse because sleep is required for repair,
Yeah,
That can
Right.
also happen in bipolar illness too.
right? Where
When
there's
the
a
body
mania,
becomes so revved up that they can't sleep.
yeah,
and this
They
they're
don't-
person,
running on adrenaline.
and this
Yeah.
person claims that all the remedies that have been prescribed to her do not work for her to go to sleep.
Now, there are 40 or 50 people in the world that have a genetic problem that stops sleeping, period. It's in their brain and it cuts off sleep, and they're usually dead within a year. And that they're dead because the repair hasn't taken place. So sleep is required for repair.
You're quite busy in sleep.
You're busy, there's a few, yeah, the few busynesses.
So if you make up some sleep, if you don't say if you sleep only, say, 4 hours at night, and if you make it up during the day, does that count, or does the meridian clock have to be?
Yeah,
Well,
the problem
okay.
has to do with the growth factor, all right, the human growth factor. You have to be in certain stages of sleep. It's a rhythm, right?
Yes.
And around the time that you've been in this pattern of sleep at 4 or 5 hours is when the human growth hormone is released. And the human growth hormone then is in charge of all of that, daily repair that goes on, because you've worn yourself out. You've worn some of your skin off, you've worn your tongue off, you have some things going on in your gut because you digested. All of these things have to have the human growth hormone available. If you awaken before then, it's done.
Wow.
And you can never go back, it isn't like you have this bottle of human growth hormone that if you didn't use it last night, you can have it tonight.
Oh, that'd be great.
Whatever you missed is gone.
Wow.
Now, the only thing you can hope is that it wasn't that important. But wonder if it was. Wonder if it was.
What do you mean by what was not that important? The repair?
Yeah, maybe that moment of repair can be passed by.
Oh,
But if you do that over and over and over and over and over and over again, there's gonna be developing this big hole in the repair. And you're gonna be fraying the fabric, right?
yeah.
And pretty soon it's just gonna blow apart. And some of the things that happen when the fabric blows apart is called cancer, right? Immunological disorders, heart disease, respiratory disease, because the lung has to repair every single time, every single day, you have to have repair going on. Dementias, you just pick a system, it'll fall apart for you. And if it falls apart, it eventually drags everything with it. You can't be perfectly healthy except. You're not perfectly healthy if you have an except for. And if you have an except for, it's more like, a funnel. This might be at the bottom of the funnel, but it's dragging everything with it. So you got, thinking that, I'll make up for it tomorrow. Now, there's things in life that just interfere with good sleep. I mean, if your kid got in a car wreck and they're being shipped up to the ICU and it's, 11 p.m., you're not gonna say, oh, I'll come in the morning when I'm better rested, okay? You're just not gonna say that. You're gonna go, trying to figure out how to get there. And in this day and age, you probably even drive over to the hospital and sit in your car because they're not gonna let you in.
Right.
Just so that you can be within that physical proximity of that person that you care about. It'll give you comfort and you hope that it provides them comfort. Maybe they'll know that you're right there, even though you're not right there, because you can't be right there, right? And so, you're gonna sit in the car and then now you're gonna worry because you aren't able to, well, you're gonna worry anyway, trust me. Even if you were sitting right next to him, you'd be worried.
So is the problem that certain energy flows, blood, lymphatics are not working properly when these problems are being experienced?
Absolutely, they become
So the
deranged.
cells are not being nourished properly?
So one of the big things that we talk about is blood. In Chinese medicine, blood is a fuller substance, all right? It carries the spirit throughout the body.
Mm.
It carries, the chi carries with the blood. So to get something from point A to point B, you need this blood flowing. The chi pushes the blood. Well, the blood has to be rejuvenated. And in Chinese medicine, what we talk about is that it's rejuvenated by the liver at night. It's cleaned and re-energized so that the next day you have this, energetic blood that can now get you up and take you through your day and do all the things that you need to do, and then you go to sleep the next night and it gets all cleaned up. Well, what's gonna happen to that blood if you're pissed off all night? Because now we're back to that's the liver organ that's supposed to be cleaning your blood, and instead of cleaning your blood, it might actually be polluting it with the anger.
You mean you can be angry while you're sleeping?
Oh yeah, nightmares are a form of anger while you're sleeping. When you go and you're having those dreams about, people being killed and whatnot, and maybe you're part of the perpetuating party, that's anger,
Thank God I don't have those kinds
So
of
the
dreams.
problem with the blood flow, for example, is that there's a contraction taking place somewhere in the system, and
In that particular case, it's a contraction within the liver, because it's
Within the-
tense with anger.
So if there was from the outside, and there seems to be some healing modalities, if there was stimulation to some of the meridians, for example, which impact
Right.
other systems, the blood flow then could be stimulated.
Yeah, and you can actually do that by taking a deep breath and using the lung and pulling the blood
So does
forward.
this system, then, the Chinese system does acknowledge that, or actually?
Oh, absolutely, that's how we work.
Yeah.
That's exactly how we
So
work.
simply stimulating some of the meridians or some of the.
But they have to be properly done,
Yes,
and the
of course.
meridian points, of course, all have their different uses. They go here, there, and everywhere.
So it isn't necessary, I assume, to get into the details of the pure person's specific problems.
Well, it is when you study Chinese medicine, but
Oh, it
that's
is?
why I'm
They
here.
do,
We get
So it's
into the
both.
nitty gritty details of all this.
of the personality.
Every point and every personality trait and every that's actually why I sit here and talk about it, because this is what I studied.
So things at Bethel, for example, they have a healing center, if I may just finish it. They have like healing centers and I go there on Saturday and to watch and see what's going on, and people are healed of a variety of significant problems by the presence of, a group of people who do heal and do lay hands on,
Okay,
and they do have significant changes
right.
very frequently.
Mhm.
And that's without getting into the details of the person's problem, whatever.
Right.
The parents didn't treat them well, or they had an accident of some kind.
Right.
It's a significant number of people.
Okay.
And
Right.
they come from all over.
And statistically, we also know that they relapse within about a month.
How does it happen that it even works for a month?
Psychosocial. Your mind can do amazing things. And if I'm invited to do an amazing thing and feel supported, I can do an amazing thing. But we also know statistically that it doesn't last. It's more the placebo process.
But prayer also works. There is
Yeah.
actually a physiological change or change physics in terms of what happens with water when it's prayed over. We don't quite understand the whole mechanism of it, but they're getting closer to figuring it out in Western science. But it's the Eastern has known about it all along. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just
and we don't necessarily, in Eastern medicine, if you can't quite make the connection, it doesn't matter, so long as this works and this works. Just do it. Do what works. You don't have to necessarily get down to the nitty-gritty of physiology the way that we do. Often, in Western medicine, they'll tell you that acupuncture doesn't work.
Right.
Really? How come Medicare's paying for it then?
there's
you have
also
to-
the observer effect too, even on any kind of experiment.
Right,
Your physical presence or your attention to it
And we
actually
know that.
affects the outcome or the way that it functions.
and that was one of the confounding problems in my own research that I did for my doctorate, was because I only worked on women and the experimenters were only women. Now, would a man working with women have the same outcome, or would a woman working with a man have the same outcome? Would we have the same outcome with veterans as opposed to civilians? All of those things have to be checked out. Okay, Morgan.
Oh, okay. So going back to the sleep thing, some nights I'll get 8 hours and I'll feel terrible in the morning, and then other nights I'll get 8 hours and I feel the best I've ever been. And I'm sure that has to do with
Right.
just stressors in the day and how
It
that
does.
affects everything.
And if you pay attention to the way that you're dreaming, you will probably see the stressors.
And
We have a condition called dream disturbed sleep.
right.
So here you are, you're snoring away, but your brain never reached it. So during dreaming, if it's a simply a resolution dream, which is what dreams are for, they resolve the daytime, right? And during that period of time, your body is supposed to be adrenaline free. There's supposed to be no chemical called norepinephrine coming out into your brain, which cascades down into adrenaline. This is a quiet, you may be slightly aware that you have done this, but it's a quiet time and resolution occurs, and you may wake up, with some magnificent insight and things like that. Then there's the other one, where it never shut up. And it didn't reach that state of zero adrenaline. And therefore, your body is also engaged all night long. And you didn't get the rest because you didn't reach the zero.
Right.
And you could sleep for 15 hours like that and wake up totally exhausted,
Okay.
That's
so interesting.
Yeah, and it's a form of some sort of stress within your life. And at this point, it's actually affecting your digestive system.
Okay, that's good to
Got
know.
it?
Yeah.
So negative coping, now this one, it says directions. Place kit on firm surface, follow directions in the circle. Repeat step 2 as necessary or until unconscious. If unconscious, cease.
Cease.
Repetition.
God.
This would be a negative coping style, I think. Or you belong to the Flathead Society, I don't know. But we have to either have positive coping styles because stress happens. Stuff happens, right? And you either deal with it in a positive way and grow, or you deal with it in a negative way and get stuck, and maybe even regress. Small children often regress, right? You've heard about the second child gets born and then the first child starts wetting their bed because they're having a negative coping style, but that's expected of a small child. Now, if your teenager started doing that because they have a baby brother, that would be a negative coping style,
Right.
right? So some of this also has to do with developmental age. You know, if you are 4 years old and you have a temper tantrum, it is still within your developmental age to do that. But 5-year-olds having true temper tantrums should be outgrowing that,
Mhm.
you know? So it's kind of like, you know, and if you happen to be like 74 and, well, president and have a temper tantrum, this is a real bad developmental style. So, now Chinese medicine looks at mental health very differently. Remember, we look at mental health not as if it's over here somewhere, you got mental health and you got physical health. Now, they are getting a little better in Western medicine, they really are. But a lot of, you know, you can see the biggest problem actually in psychiatry when they're trying to medicate somebody and now that person's body feels absolutely not well. And the psychiatrist is like, yes, but you're mentally stable. Well, who cares if I can't, you know, if I can't sit down and I'm throwing up all the time and I can't eat. It doesn't matter that I'm now able to communicate that to you, right? It still needs to be changed. Or, you know, sometimes with our SSRI, somebody's not depressed, but they're losing so much weight that it's dangerous. Because that's a side effect of that drug. And then, you know, it's like, yeah, but you're not depressed anymore. No, but I'm ready to die because there's not much of me left.
More likely gaining weight, actually.
Well, SSRIs have,
What?
that's the side
More
effect.
likely gaining weight on SSRIs, yeah.
No.
And antipsychotics.
And well, antipsychotics,
Yeah.
yeah. Right? So we give you an antipsychotic because you're depressed and you gain 47 pounds in like 3 months. And we expect you not to be depressed,
Seen it happen.
you know?
Oh.
I mean, this was a much happening.
Another question, I think.
Yeah.
Just quickly, why,
No problem.
what happened? Why did Western medicine decide that mental health needs to be over here and
Because it's
physical
what
health
we
needs to be
call a
over here?
reductionist system. So we get down to the smallest place to see what the cause is. Whereas Chinese medicine is a holistic system and we want to know how is the whole person affected. But you know, if you go to say a cardiologist, right, because you're having chest pain, he really doesn't care that your grandmother died yesterday.
Right.
He wants to know if your arteries are clogged up, right?
Mhm.
And once he opens your arteries, if you're still having chest pain, he still doesn't care that your grandmother died yesterday.
Hmm.
That's not his business.
Mm-hmm.
Now you need to go talk to a counselor, you need to go see a psychiatrist, you need to go to grief, you need to see your spiritual person. His was to open up your heart. And that's what we call a reductionist thing. It gets down to the one thing. The problem is we're human. There's no real such thing as the one thing.
Right.
You know, I mean, can you take two people, break their neck in, say, a bad car accident? One will actually do pretty well, and the other one will die. They both broke their neck. But this person has what they came with, and this person has what they came with. Whether it's the support system that they had, whether it was a positive attitude before they broke their neck, whether they were stronger when they broke their neck, it's, you know, it's the whole system. And so we are, you know, we're not reductionists in Chinese medicine. Now, under certain circumstances, it's okay to be a reductionist. I mean, if you're having a heart attack and what we want to do is save your life, right now it really doesn't matter that your grandma died yesterday.
Right.
But in a few hours, it's going to matter that your grandma died yesterday, because it may interfere with your capacity to actually recover.
Mm.
Now that we've saved your heart.
Mm-hmm.
But wonder if your heart is broken.
There you go.
I could save your physical heart and you could die anyway of a broken heart. You know? That same babysitter that dropped dead when her daughter was yelling at her, her ex-husband died 3 weeks later of no apparent cause. So, Anyway, so in Eastern medicine, we look to see what is the disturbance within the whole. You know, if you throw a stone into a pond, right, it ripples all the way out. It doesn't just take one trajectory, it makes a whole big circle. And so if we don't look at you as a whole person, we will miss the treatment. And we're 6,000 years old. We didn't have labs.
You didn't have what?
Labs. We
Oh.
didn't have x-rays, we didn't have CT scans, we didn't have MRIs. Those are all good under the right circumstances. But, you know, one of the diagnoses that just makes me kind of nuts is fibromyalgia. It's a diagnosis that is given especially to women when they can't be reduced to that one little problem that is causing them pain. And so they're given this diagnosis so that they can write an ICD-10 and hand them medication. But wonder if it's not the pain causing the problem, but the problem causing the pain, right? We're gonna miss it with medication. And, you know, a lot of times they don't get them into counseling so that this background stuff, you know, I mean, most of the time it's a buzzword for trauma. That person has trauma in their background. They have some significant trauma that is causing PTSD and is being manifested physically, right? And it's being expressed in all of what we in Chinese medicine call dampness within the muscle. So when you touch this person, they're like, everything hurts because their muscles are full of this heat and dampness. Well, why wouldn't we treat the PTSD then? Now let's say that they can't approach that. We can still treat this heat and dampness to cool things off and then maybe make it safe to address the PTSD. And I can literally address that without going into the great details of what happened. That's not my area of practice, that's like Cher's area of practice. You know?
Sort of. And this probably is gonna be a little bit out of left field for most people in here, cause they didn't probably hear the same lecture or information I did, but you were asking about the difference between Western and Eastern, and it may have originated in the difference, how culture shifted from immanent, which is happening right here, right now, in the experience of that, to more transcendent kind of perspective on what's going on, what we're all about. So, and it expressed especially in religions, types of religions, whereas the immanent is like holistic. It's your experience of all of your life and everything that's going on right here, right now, and your joy in it, or your sorrow, or whatever. Whereas transcendent is looking for a way out, looking for the door to the other side, and you can put up with a lot of stuff. So if you're transcendent, you've got to look for what the problem is that you're going to pay penance for. That'll keep you from going to hell. Here, you pay this much money. And whenever the Greeks, whenever those people were beginning to really look at this, they were trying to find, they were bleeding. Okay, so the problem is because you've got this blood and there's evil in your blood and we're going to get it out. They were looking for the humors, which were the cause of the problem, which kept you out of heaven, basically. You're not going to be able to transcend to that next level appropriately. Whereas if you're just living your whole life here, what are all the different things that are going on? What do you need to do to be balanced? I thought, wow, wait a minute, there it is. That's why I heard this the other day, because this question was going to come up, you know. I thought, man, that's very interesting. That's true. And it did, digress 5,000-6,000 years ago. It shifted. And some people continued in this fashion, and others moved into another direction, you know.
And this is actually why China will not allow religion. The Chinese medicine, the Chinese study is based on what we call Taoism, the here and the now. You know, how do you function in life, here and now? And religion walks in and goes, oh, no, 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 it's not about the here and now, it's about there.
After.
And they're like, no,
What's the evil thing that's keeping you from going there?
right? And so actually they will, you can go over there and you can take care of people all you want, but don't talk about religion, period. End of discussion, you'll end up in one of their little black houses. And you don't want to be in a black house because that means you disappeared.
So are there no religions at all in China? I thought there were a few.
Well, that's why
But they're underground and they're
underground.
persecuted. And,
Yeah, they're very heavily
It's scary.
persecuted. That's the whole thing that's going on with the Muslim sect that's up in northern China, you know, up in
Yeah.
that
That's why
northern
the
area.
Christians are so excited about the idea of going there, because then they get to save the heathens, you know, that are supposed to be.
Right,
Yeah.
and this is, you know,
It's a
a
great-
lot of people in the United States are like, oh, you're
Mission.
persecuting the Muslims. No, they'll persecute anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, it's an equal opportunity black house.
And is this a contemporary thing, a modern thing, or is that a?
No, no,
was it
this is, everything about China is based on the Taoist teaching. Now, the political party called communism
Sure,
is fairly new since the 1920s, but, you know, the whole training is about Lao Tzu and the Tao Te Ching, right?
Right.
And even Confucianism. If you look at that, it's about how do you act right now. It's not about how do you act so that you can go sit somewhere, you know, playing the harp. That's not what it's about. It's about how do you play the harp right now,
And do
Right.
people like it? Yes.
right?
Are you socially acceptable?
So, you know, we can treat all of these emotional issues. Now, some of the things that we don't necessarily, you know, in my practice, I don't necessarily do it without Western assistance. All right? Especially if we're talking about the psychotic disorders of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Now, bipolar disorder sometimes can be treated without the Western medicine, but it's unusual, okay? I mean, I do have a gentleman who doesn't know that he's bipolar because he cognitively can't understand what that means.
What?
But nonetheless,
No function.
he is bipolar. So his wife calls me to tell me when he is out of the middle. And he really gets out of the middle. He'll stand in the middle of the street screaming about the Bible and things like this because he's quite delusional at this point. It's not his fault. It happens to be what his brain does. Okay, so here he is, and his wife will let me know when he's moving in one direction or the other. And I just use acupuncture to bring him back to the middle. Now, he's a more unusual case. Usually, I'm working with Western medicine, and they're trying to find medicine to balance, and I'm trying to keep the heat from firing the brain while they find something that works. And then there's the difficulty of not only does it have to be the right medication, it has to be the right dose, which sometimes is very difficult to come up with. And sometimes the doses can be reduced because we're using acupuncture with it.
And lithium that's really commonly used is actually a salt from the earth. It's like,
It's a salt, it's a heavy metal, yeah,
yeah,
you know, but
which
So-
would fit within the,
sometimes people will come in and they're very distressed, and I'll say, okay, you know, I'm gonna help you just relax, you know, and I will do, yesterday I had somebody coming in and, you know, she didn't wanna cry, but she kept crying because she was so disturbed, right? So I handed her tissues, I put in Buddha's triangle, I did a few things in her head to cool her
oh,
off, and she went to sleep. Wow. It's very, very powerful. Another person who came in and she's just a stressed out mess because she started school and she's got, you know, her whole life is changing. And she had a headache. So I put some needles in her feet and a few in her head and let her go to sleep. You know, because it could be very, very powerful. Now, once we've reduced that, will it last? Yes, sometimes it will last on and on, but other times we have to stair step it. into goodness. And then sometimes I get to the point where I'm like, you need to learn a different way to deal with these things rather than give yourself a headache.
Mm-hmm.
And then I send them off to counselors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because yeah, okay, sure, I could help them out, but that's not what I'm doing. I have other people, right? And there are great counselors available. And that's their job. They can't put in the needles, but they could do the counseling.
And EMDR.
EMDR, for instance, right?
Oh,
We can use what we call the 8 extraordinary vessels. Now these are the reservoirs of things. Some of them are reservoirs from your parents. The ren and the do. The ren is really, how does your mother treat you? How were you nurtured? It might not necessarily be your mother, but how did your mother nurture you? How were you fed? Were you in an orphanage? If so, that's going to weaken this system. And if it's weakened, we have to strengthen it. The do system is about that time just before about 2 years old when a child can walk, but they're not very smart. And so they want to move away and stay at the same time. They might try to move away from the parent, and then they come running back because the world is big and scary. And how that develops right there is how much trust does that person have in himself or herself in the world? If that didn't properly develop, you're going to have an adult that, and I know a person like this, she tried to move with her person that she'd worked for 15 years. That person moved to Washington, so she offered her a job in essentially doing the same thing in Washington. She got to Washington and she only lasted 6 weeks because that was the first time that she'd lived away from her mother, and she was 43 years old.
Oh, boy.
So she moved back to Reading to be with her mother. Well, she never developed the do system.
Wow.
So she moved away and came back, right?
Yeah.
Right? Now the Chong system is literally the DNA that you bring in. It's all of that stuff that your ancestry handed to you. And if these 3 systems are not working, you're going to have a lot of trouble in adulthood. Now, I can't change what you brought with you. I can help you open it up and I can help it rearrange. But if these 2 systems didn't work, this one's going to be a mess. And you're going to get to hand it off to the next ancestor, right? Yeah, I know. It's
A responsibility.
it is, if you think about it. And this is one of the reasons why wait for transcendence? The Chinese want to know what you're doing about it right now. So that you aren't handing this off, right? Okay. We also, we change these things literally through acupuncture. This is where our needles work really well for this. And it doesn't take a whole lot. Then you have other ones that occur on how your life is developing. What missteps did you make in your life? And if you made that misstep, did you learn anything? Like not to step in that again or whatever it was, right? Well, if you didn't learn anything, or if you're having trouble learning it, and a lot of people come to realize later on that they had a lesson to be learned and they missed it.
Mm.
And it's sitting right there waiting for them. And so we can actually open up this vessel and allow them. Now we have to build their strength, and this strength, a lot of this is done in conjunction with a counselor or a spiritual advisor. Because opening it up also means that you have to do something with it. And we may need a counselor around to do something with it. So a lot of times my job is to get somebody ready for counseling.
Mm.
Now I also take them from the counselors because they have settled into a lot of pain here. They took a misstep and it created pain, and they held the pain instead of learning the lesson. So if I open this up so that they can release the pain, they're still going to need to work with somebody while they're opening it up and releasing it. So they don't have fibromyalgia, right? And then, of course, there is the system that holds the excess from the organs themselves, from the inside, you know, and it's the inside on how do you go into yourself, and also how do you come out. So it's this motion in and out, and if this motion in and out is incorrect, then we have to rearrange it. You know, have you ever said to somebody, how are you? And suddenly, like 3 hours later, you think, when are they going to shut up?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
TMI, right? And you're just like, oh God, all I asked was, how are you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this person has a little trouble with the you know, the expression part of it, right? And they need to close up their boundaries a bit,
Mm.
right? But then there's the other child, and this is the teenager thing, you say, how are you? Fine.
Yep.
Did you have a good day in school? Yep. Right? Needs to be loosened up just a bit. And so this has to be balanced. And then we have the system that actually connects all of these systems together. And if you're in a disconnect, there's a problem in here. Maybe it feels like this, you know, and you hear this with the way people talk. Well, this part of my life is going really well. How come I can't get it together in this part of my life? Because this system that connects it, puts it all together, ties it up in a little ribbon, is broken. And it needs to be brought together. It needs to be completed so the circle can complete. And we can do that with acupuncture. We can do a lot of things with herbs. Just for instance, insomnia. But it depends on what that insomnia is about, okay? For instance, there's a formula called Gui Pitong. And this is for people who worry about everything. Oh, if I wear a red dress and somebody else shows up in a red dress, that might be really creepy, so I better wear the white dress. But wonder if they show up in a white dress, and wonder if they come with polka dots, and oh my God, you know, and if I had a spelling error in that paper and then I turn it in and I'm gonna get an F, right? Then they can't sleep because, you know, well, we know that you already got an F, so now what am I gonna do? My whole career is shot because I got an F because I misspelled this word, and, you know. It's amazing what people will work. But, you know, these people are having palpitations, you know, they can feel their heart racing because they're having anxiety along with that worry, you know. They may not be able to take a deep breath because, God forbid, now we're all tense because, you know, if I say anything, what would happen if I say anything? So I can't say anything, and, you know, it's just, and of course, then they can't sleep, and then they begin to forget, and now they have to take a test, and they can't focus on the test, and pretty soon, you know, this depletes their appetite, and that depletes their body, and they become a mess. So we
The
give a
rule is you
formula.
have to be perfect.
Huh?
What?
The rule is you have to be perfect,
You have to be
or
perfect.
you are in danger.
That's
Right.
right.
And Gui Pitong gives you the permission to misspell a word.
Ah.
That's a form of a medicine?
It's
but
an herbal medicine.
Herbal medicine.
Combination.
Yes.
That,
This is the whoops, where is it? This is literally the herbs in that.
Mm.
And they are put in there in certain ratios.
okay.
And in this day and age, you don't have to cook them because they stink. And then you have to drink them and they taste awful. So now we just put them in a pill for you. You swallow a few pills.
Quickly.
But I mean, if you were to go to Chinatown, let's say in San Francisco, you could still
You could get
Purchase
the raw herbs.
the herbs from China.
Yes, you could.
Yep.
Yes, you could.
I never-
And 70% of Americans will not take them.
They're fine.
You know. This one, Swanzhao Rentong, then treats insomnia again. But it's because you're irritable and you're restless and you've got vertigo and you know, you wake up too hot and your mouth is all dry and gnarly. So you still have insomnia. We're still treating your insomnia, but we have to sort out the why. Right? And this is more a liver problem. The Gui Pitong is more a spleen problem. And then there's the Tian Wan Bu Shin Tong. We call this the student's herbal formula
Oh, for students.
I might need that.
because
Oh,
you know
good.
there's an anxiety here. but there's also a very deficiency or a low energy. So you don't have the energy to get into sleep
Wow.
because you're worn out. And you can be, you can have forgetfulness, you can be a little irritable. But there's also things like you're constipated, you're dry on the inside with this thing. You may be getting mouth sores or tongue sores. A lot of people get those sores on their tongue or on their lips. And they'll be like, oh, I don't know, I got this thing again. This is not, cold sores are also under this. You know, it's like you get freaked out over something and then you come up with a cold sore, right? I always got a cold sore when I have something important to do. This is a perfect Tian Wang Bushinpang person, as soon as we get rid of cold sore, because there's a formula for those too. Nutrition is extremely important. You can't trash your body and expect it to live well.
Right?
And, food is our first medicine. The first thing, but you have to eat now Western medicine is like one size fits all, right? Everybody needs extra vitamin C and B and, it's one pill fits all in Western medicine, really. Nobody needs pork. Eggs are bad. They pick on the food, right? But both pork and eggs are needed by that person. They need to be moistened and cooled off, and pork and eggs do that. But they're not needed by this person, nor are they needed by that person. They'll just make them fat. This person. All right? So we study these things, but the first thing, and this is the hardest place of compliance, tell you truthfully. I can't hand you a pill that makes you eat right. You literally have to eat right.
Mm-hmm.
And if I say to you, look, the best thing you could do is eat this, and then all your life in Western medicine, they say, don't eat that, right? There becomes a problem. So, like potatoes are absolutely wonderful for this person. White potatoes are absolutely wonderful for this person, but not for this person. It's Chinese yams that are absolutely wonderful for this person.
Wow.
It has certain nutrients that are,
It has certain energetics that are
Okay.
required for this person
okay,
as opposed to somebody else.
okay.
Is that me?
Yes, that's you,
Ah.
but you don't have the insomnia. You sleep really well. If you were weaker, you might have the insomnia, but you aren't. Because, one of the few people in the world, if I told her to stand on her head while she was eating the potatoes, she would try.
Some of these books, like that book that you put on the screen right now, would that be beneficial for somebody like me to get a hold of, to read through?
No, because it would speak in Chinese language, or Chinese medicine language, and you would not be able to understand it. However, there is a book that is written for regular people called The Tao of Nutrition.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And this particular one would be helpful to you because he spends a lot of time trying to make Chinese medicine more understandable
Mm,
to the average person.
I have
nice.
a copy of that and I love it.
Oh, you
have-
do?
You have that
Okay.
book?
I do.
Yeah.
Wow.
That one's going to be raffled off at Chinese New Year.
Really?
This one? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is,
So there's a lot of ways to, you have to combine all of this. Of course, we all are kind of familiar with what depression looks like. The symptoms of depression in Western medicine and Chinese medicine are not different. You're depressed, right? We actually go often into more physiological type of expression. And you can see here that when you eat, if you're depressed, you need to eat light foods. They need to be easy to digest. That's what this is saying. And you need to you know, you can't just go into all this raw food. It's too hard to digest. When you're depressed, your body is slowed down, and that includes your digestive system. And so these salads actually will deplete you and make you more depressed. See how that works?
Mhm.
But, you know, salads are a really weird thing in Western society. Because they tell people, don't eat any raw foods. And they're like, what? I can't eat a salad? And it's like, well, you can, but you have to wilt it.
You
with
have to
vinegar.
what to it?
Wilt it, so that it's cooked by the vinegar.
Okay,
It's just like the salad that we had today, she actually put it in vinegar last night.
Oh,
okay.
So it would start to digest through the process of
It
fermentation.
has a bit of lime juice in it.
Yeah.
Wow,
So you can
okay.
do vinegars, you can do limes, you can do lemons. There's a lot of ways to begin this breaking down process without using your body that doesn't have any energy because you're depressed.
Okay, that's
Or you're
interesting.
depressed because you haven't got any energy. It doesn't really matter.
Wow,
It's a
right.
chicken or an egg problem, right?
yeah.
So that, you know, and then of course, a lot of people will take in these high doses of vitamin C. Do you know what you get if you take in high doses of antioxidants?
No,
Cancer.
what?
They tell you it's absolutely the opposite.
Hmm?
They say the absolute opposite.
No, all the research shows it's cancer.
I know, but they say the opposite. That's how the whole vitamin C thing.
That's all.
Yeah.
No, she's
What's
talking
his
about
name?
antioxidants, not vitamin C.
Well, vitamin C is one of your antioxidants.
It is?
Yeah, and that guy up in Oregon started this whole idea, but he didn't do any research. But the research is in.
Sort of anecdotal.
You know, if you take these massive doses of vitamin C, you are actually interfering with the immune system. You know, this whole word antioxidant sounds like a curse word, right? Oh, antioxidants. Right? Oxidation is exactly what the body does when it breaks down food. And then if you have a balance, an antioxidant comes, binds with it, neutralizes it, takes it out of the body. But if you have to have this oxidation occur to break down your food correctly. You also have to have these oxidants because when they find something powerful like a cancer cell, they poison it. So if you take out all of your oxidants with antioxidants, who's gonna kill the cancer cell?
Oh
You know, really,
my
huh?
God. Oh, okay.
Because there is no one thing, it's all about balance.
So just quickly, those emergency packets,
Yeah,
are those
not
bad?
a very good idea.
Even one of them?
Yeah, well, you know, one is probably not gonna hurt you. But, you know, the whole mindset that we have is the problem, right? We think we're helping the immune system when we are taking the immune system out of balance. And we actually deplete the function of the immune system by increasing the antioxidants above where they belong.
It's the transcendent plan.
It's the transcendent plan.
Take out the offender and then your whole life will be good.
That's right.
Instead of work with all the synergistic elements of food. They're really starting to say, hey, wait a minute, you can't just have this chemical vitamin C. You really need all the fibers and all of the other things that go along with it to process the whole thing effectively in your body.
Well, there's also the issue, and you may have noticed it, but you know, the older you get, the more you notice it. This year, we have a superfood X.
Yeah.
Next year, superfood X creates cancer,
Oh,
Oh.
right? Or we do this thing, oh my gosh, we discovered this wonderful particle within food. And it is the panacea of all disease, right? And so we all start substituting food with all these vitamins and stuff. Oh, I don't have to worry about what I eat because I take all these vitamins. And then, of course, next year, we discover another one of those little substances that you didn't get all this year because you took all those vitamins instead of the food. Because it doesn't matter if you know what's in food. It only matters that you eat a balanced diet. If your diet is balanced, we didn't know 6,000 years ago all these little things. We didn't even really know this stuff 200 years ago. You know, vitamins were only discovered in the 1950s.
Really?
I was gonna say it was 50 years ago, wasn't
Really?
it, that they
Yeah,
only started,
so
like,
it's,
wait a
it's
minute.
what, 70 years ago,
Yeah.
And
right?
it became sort of a fad from then on. It was the new hip thing to take vitamins to improve your health, right?
Yeah,
So, you know, in Chinese medicine, there are no fad diets.
Right.
Because fad diets is one size fits all. And no size fits all in Chinese medicine. It depends on you and what you need. But the only way I'm gonna know that is if I look at you. Right? Instead of the piece of paper that somebody sent me in front of you. Because, you know, most of you might have been to a doctor where they go, well, this piece of paper says there's nothing wrong with you.
The labs are all good. You're all within.
Now, you feel like
Range.
hell. You can't get out of bed in the morning. You're losing weight. You have tongue ulcerations. You know, you got crap all over your feet. You can't heal a wound. You're bruising all over the place, but there's nothing really wrong with you.
That's the exact story with my great grandmother. Every time she goes to her doctor, he tells her you're as healthy as a 25-year-old, and yet
But
she
she's
is
not.
diminishing daily. So
And is this the 104-year-old?
the 104-year-old.
Well, we would actually expect her to start at some point
Well, of
diminishing
course.
quickly, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, wonder if you're 35 and you have no energy, your hair is falling out, your skin itches like hell, it's flaking all over the place, you're gaining weight and you can't keep it off, and you don't have the energy to exercise, and yet you really actually don't eat much.
Thyroid.
In the 1950s, we would have given you thyroid because we didn't have the lab work to tell us there was nothing wrong with you.
Where do we go? What could I do to learn more about this, the food and all that? That's eating properly is crucial for me.
Crucial,
Absolutely tough.
absolutely crucial. Yeah, you come and make an appointment.
talk to the doc.
And we come, because at that point, I have to assess you. I have to know who and what you are. I have to know what's out of balance with you. And then we have to look at, okay, you need more of this but less of that. Or pump this up over here but don't get rid of that over there. Because there is no one size fits all. And so until we as Chinese medicine doctors know what you are all about, not what Pauline's about, I already know her, I need to know you, right? And even though you might say, well, she's taking it because of this X, and I have that same X, that might just be this whole problem with insomnia, right? Everybody there had insomnia and they had 3 different formulas.
Mm,
Every one of them came in complaining they can't sleep,
mm.
and they have 3 different formulas. You know, Cheryl probably has the experience that she sends somebody over because they're upset, right? They're crying all the time or something. And then they go back with a different formula than the person she sent last week. Now, not always, you know. But it's because this person is not exactly the same as that person, even though they share a common symptom,
Mhm.
such as insomnia. We have 10 major causes of insomnia, and all of them require a different formula. And that's the majors, that's not even inclusive of the minors, so. You have to, this is the big thing, is that you have to work with somebody who's trained in this. It's not a self-help thing.
Yeah,
And there are some general guidelines for health, but specifically, we have to look at you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm reading, I get, on the internet, there's these doctors are coming up with new things like just like
Yeah.
you're saying, and they just do this and they find more things and it's almost like monthly. to be honest with you.
Exactly,
I'll be honest with you, it's almost monthly.
because those doctors on TV are making money to say what they're saying,
Yeah, they are,
right?
yeah, no.
So you always have to go, how much money did you get paid to say that?
I take olive oil, that's supposed to be pretty good, I guess. I don't know if you know.
It depends on you. You know, olive oil is a good oil, but so is sesame oil, and so is avocado oil, right? And it depends on, sunflower oil is a good oil, these are all good oils. But which one is good for you is always the question that has to be asked.
I think Dr. Gundry, you guys all heard, he promotes his olive oil because it has a high concentration of polyphenols or something, I'm not sure what it is. Whatever.
It's an antioxidant.
It's an antioxidant, and that could be bad for you if you have too much. Am I correct?
Could be.
You are
Could be.
very correct. Ding, 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 ding. He's the winner!
This is
Yes,
interesting.
that you're hearing what I'm saying here. This is the problem. This is exactly the problem. You know, for all the nonsense we have done for heart disease,
Uh-huh,
all the surgeries, all the interventions, all the picking on of eggs, all the getting rid of the pork, all the you gotta walk this way or you gotta jump that way or you gotta do this. It is still the #1 killer in the United States, even last year with COVID.
Wow.
And with all of the, gee, take olive oil or eat hawthorn berries or eat blueberries or eat raspberries or eat whatever berries, the #2 killer last year was cancer. If those things worked, why are we still dying of all this crap?
because they're that portion of the population who don't take those, eat.
Oh no, I was an ICU nurse, trust me. I heard, why am I in here? I did everything right. Well, the only thing they did wrong was they listened to the Western medicine people. Do you know there are several studies out that say statins don't work because cholesterol is not the problem with heart attacks? Yet, what's the best seller? A statin. To lower cholesterol. And who keeps telling us lower the cholesterol? The pharmaceutical company that made the statin.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a,
And then they came and told the doctors, oh, you gotta lower the cholesterol even more. Now what happens? We have to give more thyroid. Because what does a statin do? What does cholesterol do? Do you think, this is just an open-ended question, do you think the body's really gonna make something that it doesn't need? Cholesterol is made in your liver. It's made in your liver at a level that you need. It is rarely pathological. There are a few people that have genetic, transcriptase that problems. But if your cholesterol is supposed to be 211, and her cholesterol is supposed to be 226, and her cholesterol is supposed to be 186, are we supposed to make your cholesterol 186? No, we're supposed to leave it at 211. Why? Because that's the way your body was programmed. See?
there's a lot I need to learn on this.
Yeah.
I'll be frank about it. Food is crucial.
Food is more than crucial.
This is-
Food is our first medicine, right?
Yeah.
You come out of the chute, you take a breath, and we stick a nipple in your mouth.
Yeah.
If we don't do that, your whole world falls apart, right?
And you don't
She's
get
on
any
it now. She's on it now.
That's right.
You also
We got the
don't
laughter
really-
is the best medicine now.
No
Yeah,
immune
this is-
factors either if you
So-
don't get that.
How
It goes
would
off.
I
Calling
learn
the
more
whole
about
world is
this?
laughing.
Well, I do this every month on the third Saturday of every month.
Third Saturday every month.
At 3 o'clock, I do all this teaching and training. Then there is the individualized teaching and training. And then, there's a basic course coming up in October through the Shasta Community Education,
Oh, yeah.
Shasta College Community Education.
Nice.
I will be teaching the basics of Chinese medicine
Yes.
there.
And that's a Shasta Junior College?
Yeah,
Shasta College.
yeah, they have the community education,
Okay,
and I teach through there.
all right.
So,
That
I try to give, before COVID, there was a whole lot more opportunities, but
Yeah.
with COVID, we've, narrowed it down.
Is that in person?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, this is,
Yeah,
I-
over at the college,
it's, I'll have to look into that, because I'm
Yeah,
interested in
because
this.
you have to register through them for that particular course.
Okay,
And then, you come every third Saturday at 3 o'clock, and we do this, with the exception of the month that Chinese New Year occurs. Then you come on Chinese New Year,
Mhm.
and we have a
Great.
great time. We have a party.
Then we party.
I like what you're presenting,
Well, that's
because I just
That's
wanna let
Chinese
everybody know
medicine.
that I do Tai Chi 3 times a week.
with Michael, or with somebody else?
No, with Stuart through Zoom.
Oh, through Zoom. So
Couple,
the other thing is you can go on my website. I have a lot of videos of my classes.
Yeah. okay,
And you can pick up some of the basic stuff.
and then I also do weight training too,
Uh-huh.
and I'm starting to do the barbells, swinging the barbell, just starting that. But I'm coupling that with doing a lot of hiking on trails, not
Uh-huh.
walking on streets.
Right. Well, the best exercise of all is walking.
Yeah. But-
And that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
But you're doing it so that you get your balance involved there also.
Yes,
Keep your ankles nice and strong and keep your low back.
absolutely, this is where I'm trying to do all the right things, and I wanna keep going and doing different things. I
Well,
know,
the big thing is that, Western medicine is what we call an interventional medicine.
uh,
You break head, we go to surgery, we put your brains back in, we sew you up, okay? You have a heart attack, we open up your vessel. It is not a preventative or lifestyle medicine. And its prevention is based on intervention, not on lifestyle,
I like the lifestyle.
right?
Um,
And so this is you're doing part of it with your Tai Chi and your weights and your hiking.
Hiking, that keeps me, believe me, with this, we're all in sort of quarantine, it's almost like, it's an enlightenment.
Right,
When I see people on a trail, they're all friendly.
yeah,
I haven't found one person that didn't say hi to me.
so long as they aren't on a bicycle trying to run you over.
You're right, okay,
Right?
yes, exactly, that's another thing, you're right, yeah, but anyway, you're right.
I've been, it's like, speed limit,
Where's the bell?
that would be
Hello,
nice.
do you have a bell on your bicycle?
Or even
Just
can you
saying.
say left,
On the left, on the left.
Right, yeah,
right?
Sooner than 10 feet.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
before they-
Thank you for that
Yeah.
information, I appreciate
So
it
you
very
can
much.
see that, even with mental health, we start with what's the food.
Mhm.
I mean, if we have somebody who's in a manic phase, we do not want them eating hot chili
Okay,
because it'll make them hotter,
okay, that's good.
right? Now, those folks could probably tolerate a bit of ice cream,
Okay,
cool
And-
them off,
And fish,
right?
yes.
And lots of deep sea fish, salmon, for instance, without the ginger,
oh, without the ginger, okay, yeah,
because they need to cool off.
okay,
They're the ones that can drink the ice water, right? But if you are one of those people who wear a sweater when it's 108 outside, you need some chili.
okay.
But you do not need ice cream. It will simply cool you off more. And pretty soon you're gonna have stomach cramps and diarrhea.
Okay, this is
See?
good.
Yeah.
See.
So this is why we have to look at you.
Okay,
I mean, if I don't know what's going on with you, I can't tell you what to do. But
okay.
if as soon as I know, like some of these ladies I actually know very well. you
Yep.
know, And I can say, no, you don't wanna be doing that, and I occasionally do that to them,
Okay, that's-
you know?
but for me, working out, I'm actually a happier person.
Well, absolutely, because, Western medicine can tell you how we move your endorphins, your little happy
Yes,
chemicals.
yeah, this is good.
Right, get the
This is good.
dopamine going.
You bet.
Right? And this is all very, very important, but,
Bodies are made for movement.
but we don't want you out there hiking 25 miles if you're having a problem getting food in you,
I agree. Yeah.
This is why sometimes I have people come in and they're like, well, I went to the gym and I started this new exercise program and I'm exhausted, and I'm like, then stop.
Now this is, you're right, this is excellent, thank you. This is why people who take CrossFit can get injured, because it's very not, somebody who's 20 years old, that may be okay,
Maybe.
maybe, I said
Yeah,
maybe.
right.
And, so, well, this is good, this is
And a
very good.
lot of this, a line is one where I'm getting a lot of injuries in from there.
From CrossFit or
No,
whatever.
it's
From
called a
online?
line,
Really?
yes.
From what?
My dad goes there.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of injuries in
Is
from
that so?
there.
What-
Yeah.
what-
They're supposed to be like straightening up all your
Yeah.
body and dealing with your
Posture.
pain and all this kind of stuff. Well, first of all, they aren't diagnosing why you have that pain.
Ooh,
Mhm.
You can see how that could be problematic,
ooh,
right?
yeah,
And then they're prescribing, well, they're suggesting,
yeah.
a fitness program based on pain, not based on you.
Okay,
And sometimes this really is not congruent with good health.
Ooh,
And then I get the back injuries, I get the leg injuries, I got a shoulder injury from that because they were overlifting. And it was like, okay.
gotta be very
I mean,
careful.
the idea is good.
Yeah.
The execution
Is-
has become problematic, So, just keep an eye on you guys.
And I'm not interjecting too much here
No,
in your
no, no.
thing.
This is what we do, we have a
No.
discussion so that whoever is understanding, like, Morgan was asking questions because she had, confusions there or even ideas of how to apply. Mark left, but, you can hear that he has a lot of ideas.
Excuse
And this-
I had, this is about a year ago or so, you used to give your presentations at Orchard,
Yes,
and,
so it'd be almost 2 years ago, yeah.
is that 2 years ago now? No, remember you
The
had,
last one
you
I
had,
did
Before,
was,
before
you
the
had
leg,
you had that suction cup on my right. Is that 2 years ago?
yeah, well, at least. Because remember,
Well,
it'd be
it is.
before COVID.
that's what it
Okay, it was
is.
before COVID, yeah.
Yes,
It's a
so we
goddamn
shut
plague.
that down in March of 2020.
Yeah, because, and I appreciate
Year and
that
a half.
presentation, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to,
Now that one is actually on my website.
that's on your website.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
particular one, yeah.
Is it okay if I mention something here?
Go ahead and I'm sure they'd be
My
interested.
highlight this summer. Okay, my highlight this summer, I'm converting that into a real nice Christmas card. And, I got to 13,150 feet attempting to climb Mount Shasta.
Okay,
Whoa,
Yeah,
good for
And,
you.
cause
I
it's
didn't,
14 something, so.
yeah, I didn't get to it,
Yeah,
I got
almost
to,
up there.
yeah. And the reason I did not,
did you get smart enough not to go up the last 1,000 feet?
yes, and the reason for that was my gait is slow. I have a slow gait.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason why I have a slow gait. It all goes back to here.
To your knee.
And actually, because my right leg is weaker than my left. My left is taking over. I'm trying to rectify that to the extent it'll never go back 100%, but that's okay. And also, by doing this workout, it's going to help my balance. You got to have balance. And if you have balance, you're able to have the confidence of a faster gait. There's a lot of complexity to this, to be
Isn't
frank
there?
about it. And, but I had a guide. I went with a guide. I wasn't going to go by myself. And that's smart.
Good thinking.
Oh yeah, I do.
Right.
Smart boy.
And may I say this? we got to, we talked about going the rest of the distance. He estimated me, because of my gait, it would take 2 more hours to get to the top.
Oh.
And
were you
2
out of
more
town?
hours to get back to where we were having this
Where-
discussion. That would have added 4 hours to just under 12 hours of hiking that I actually did.
That's really great that you did that.
Right,
Did
absolutely.
you get to
'Cause I-
Lake Helen?
What?
Did you go above Lake Helen then?
No, but I went up a different direction.
Which side were you
We,
on?
we went Clear Creek Trail,
Okay, yeah.
and no, that was good. He mapped it out so that I had the best chance
Yeah.
Right?
of getting me
That's
to the
great.
top, knowing my having a slower gait, but it wasn't. I needed. It didn't work out. Because I also, that same month, July, the first part of July, with this other group, these other younger people are moving faster than I am.